Since news channels don't actually report news anymore, you might be surprised to hear that last week the United States Senate held hearings on the FAA and Boeing's role in the two deadly 737 MAX crashes that killed 346 people.
Did the FAA screw up in certifying the 737 MAX?
I would say that there were mistakes made, yes.
Who made the mistakes and why?
FAA Administrator Stephen Dixon was called before the United States Senate to explain exactly what steps have been taken to correct the terribly flawed certification process that led to those crashes. And Dixon wasn't the only one to testify. Another surprise witness who made an appearance by mail dropped a bombshell nobody saw coming. But this bombshell wasn't about the 737 MAX. It was about the brand new 777X. Let's talk about it next on Maximus. Real quick before we start, as you can see, this YouTube data shows that only 15% of all viewers on the channel have subscribed, while 84% have not. While I'm extremely grateful for the 15% of you that have, I just wanted to take this time to remind the other 84% that if you enjoy the content here in the channel, please don't forget to subscribe. And of course, don't forget to like and ring the bell so you can be notified every time we release new content. Thanks for watching. A Boeing engineer who lodged an internal ethics complaint with Boeing in 2019 in the wake of the two deadly MAX crashes has resurfaced again, this time on Capitol Hill. Engineer Curtis Ewbank has written a letter to a U.S. Senate committee warning that problems with the 737 MAX design go way beyond the MCAS system and that these systemic issues must be fixed before the 737 MAX is allowed to return to service. As a flight deck system specialist, a majority of his time at Boeing was spent studying past crashes, compiling data to make new planes safer. Dominic Gates of the Seattle Times obtained a copy of the letter, publishing excerpts this week. In the letter, Ewbank tells the Senate, "I have no doubt the FAA and lawmakers are under considerable pressure to allow the 737 MAX to return to service as quickly as possible and as soon as the public MCAS flaw is fixed. However, given the numerous other known flaws in the airframe, it will be just a matter of time before another flight crew is overwhelmed by a design flaw known to Boeing and further lives are senselessly lost." It was at this point in the letter that Ewbank went on to drop a bombshell, suggesting that similar shortcomings in the flight control systems in the new 777X may have been compromised in the very same way. In Ewbank's original internal ethics complaint in 2019, Ewbank said Boeing management rejected all of his safety upgrade ideas because Boeing was focused on schedules and cost considerations, and the suggestion of any additional pilot training Boeing said would not under any circumstances be considered. As many of you know from following this channel, Ewbank said that Boeing strong-armed the FAA into relaxing certification requirements for the plane, and most notably in regard to any cockpit systems that would alert the pilots if there was a problem in flight. During the two MAX crashes, those cockpit warning systems would play a big role as pilots struggled to understand the flood of warnings overwhelming them in the cockpit just prior to the crashes. Ewbank sent his letter to Congress ahead of a June 5th public hearing that would see the FAA's administrator weather blistering criticism from senators on his agency's complete mishandling of the MAX certification process. Ewbank had harsh words for the FAA as well, for their complete breakdown and oversight in certifying the MAX, simply accepting Boeing's assurances. Ewbank said the 737 MAX's original certification was accomplished with hand-waving and deception to hide the numerous ways the 1960s-era design of the 737 does not meet current regulatory standards. He went on and called out the Department of Transportation's Blue Ribbon Panel for their recent report where they recommended that Boeing still be allowed to maintain its substantial role in the certification process. And finally, he said, if the FAA was truly regulating in the public interest, it would take action against Boeing for its continued deception and gross errors in the design and production of the 737 MAX by withdrawing Boeing's production certificate. In a press release, Boeing says it has not seen the letter, And they basically sum it up by saying, Boeing offers its employees a number of channels for concerns and complaints. The usual corporate answers. And Boeing concludes their statement by saying Boeing does not comment on the substance or existence of such internal complaints. As we mentioned here on Maximus, the DOT had recently concluded in their final report on the MAX crashes that if the 737 MAX had been certified as an all-new jet instead of as a derivative of the earlier model, it would not have produced more rigorous scrutiny and would not have produced a safer plane. Ewbank calls this utterly incorrect. He said that Boeing had only to evaluate cockpit hardware and software changes, not actual human pilot reaction times. In the Department of Transportation's investigation, Boeing admitted they failed in making assumptions about the pilot reaction times. By choosing to certify the jet as an amended version of the earlier model, Boeing severely limited the range of human factors evaluation of the 737 MAX systems. As far as the unyet released 777X is concerned, Ewbank has raised the alarm, saying that the unchanged system line of the 777X is even more convoluted and involves more complicated systems than the 737 MAX. In his conclusion, Ewbank stresses to senators that these flaws were known to Boeing as it worked with the FAA to certify the 737 MAX, and awareness of this was creatively hidden or outright withheld from regulators. Well, I've got a few videos on this topic, and he's right. There was nothing creatively held. It was criminally eliminated and hidden from the FAA as well as other regulators all around the world. For those of you that may be new to the channel, I'd like to reiterate here that I am not a Boeing hater, although a lot of comments say that I am. I grew up in America loving Boeing. They've been the greatest airline manufacturer for the last 100 years. But just because you love or admire something doesn't mean you can't notice flaws. And right now, Boeing is a flawed company. If you're like me, you hope Boeing can pull out of this and start making great planes again. But until then, we can't not talk about it. It's in the news. And that's what I made this channel for, Aviation News. Well, that's all I got for now. Let me know your thoughts down below. And as always, remember to subscribe, share, like, ring the bell. And as always, remember, leave the rubber on the runway and your troubles on the ground. And I will see you next time in the air. Yeah, this is Maximus.